From the new Hagmann and Hagmann studios here in Northwest Pennsylvania, this is the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It is Wednesday, May 20th, 2015. I'm Doug Hagmann at the helm with fellow investigator, researcher, and most importantly, my son, Joe Hagmann. Together, we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, America's premier father-son investigative team. Of course, you're listening to this broadcast live, coast to coast, sea to sea, all across the world, actually. Our job is to bring you the news that propels the headlines. The news that is, well, shaped and twisted, convoluted and hidden amid a funhouse of smoke and mirrors in the carnival we call the corporate media. We do the headline and news triage so you don't have to. We'd like to thank every new listener for checking in with us from all across the world. I want to thank Franco from West Manchester, I believe that's in the UK, checking in with us today. Also, Mary from Spokane, and so many others. Thanks for checking in. God bless you for checking in with us. Our home base on the internet is HagmannandHagmann.com. We're simulcast by the Christians United Broadcasting Network. There you can catch us at the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com. Of course, two N's on Hagmann. Spell it all out, including the word and. And there you have it. You can access our live as well as our past shows, social networking sites, and most importantly, our original investigative reports. Tonight, we're going to be piercing that fog of disinformation, misinformation, and misdirection, helping you to see what's really important out there. And we are so honored to have with us a guest. Joe, go ahead and introduce and bring Mr. G. Edward Griffin on.
Sure. Mr. Griffin is a writer, an award-winning documentary producer. He has a laundry list of fantastic books. If you can go to Amazon and find Mr. Griffin's library of books. One of my favorites is The Creature from Jekyll Island.
Every library should have that book. Every single person, I'm telling you. The 5th edition is out, and you got to have it, folks. Please. What an education. It's invaluable. And we've got over 1,500 books here at the Hagmann Studios. That is one of the front and center ones that we often tap for information.
And my favorite, a book which is way ahead of its time, The Fearful Master, A Second Look at the United Nations. And I'd like to get into this book and the Trans-Pacific Partnership with Mr. Griffin, but with that, we're going to bring Mr. Griffin on to the show. Welcome to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Well, thanks a lot for inviting me, gentlemen.
Well, it's great to have you. With so much going on, the first question out of the chute, and I know your time is limited, so I guess we have to get right to the point. And by the way, folks, Mr. Griffin's websites are linked directly off HagmannandHagmann.com. But for those listening via archive, freedomforceinternational.org. That's freedomforceinternational.org. As well as realityzone.com, but freedomforceinternational.org. Sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Griffin, but let's get right to it. What do you see right now taking place, going on, economic-wise, geopolitically, everything? What do we need to focus on? What's on your radar right now?
Good question. Nice broad door to go through. The first part of it is, what is going on now, and then what is my focus? And I guess implied in all of that is what do we do about it? I guess the best way to answer that question is to back away a little bit from it and look at the broad view. And if we do that, I have to say, in all candor, that what is going on today is nothing more or less than what's been going on for a long, long time, except that it's just a continuum. And, as it gets further and further into the really unpleasant stuff, the more we notice it. As long as life is fairly pleasant and tolerable and there aren't too many inconveniences, nobody pays much attention to things like the economy or the political structure or the monetary policy, or even who is running the show everybody understands that there are hidden forces behind all of the, the major institutions, but we don't care. Who cares? So sure, there are hidden forces. We don't know who's on the board of directors of the Automobile Club of America, and don't care. We don't really know who's on the board of directors of the Republican Party or the Democrat Party. We don't care, because everything is fine, and that's for experts to worry about. So as long as life is comfortable, we just don't care, don't think too much about some of the cogs and the wheels and the pulleys that are in the machinery of our society. But now that we're getting down toward the end of a process that's been going on for many decades, and the machine is beginning to wobble and vibrate, and the bolts are coming off, and sparks are flying, and people are being injured, and things are not so comfortable, especially in terms of civil unrest and unemployment and the loss of purchasing power and the destruction of wars and the death that comes with that and the sadness, broken families, and all of these things are piling up. And now people are saying, well, hey, what's going on? And so now we come to this question that you just asked. Well, what is going on today? Well, it's just the same thing that's been going on for well, in my view, it really started in full earnest, believe it or not, way back at World War I. And I had no idea that until I got into a pretty deep study of history that surrounded the Federal Reserve System, which led me back, continually going back to the Woodrow Wilson administration, which I hardly cared about that either. One of those things, who cares about the Wilson administration? It's hardly a hot-button topic, But when the historians keep throwing me back there, this is where things began to change. So having said all of that and talked around it and danced around it a little bit, what is it going on? Well, what is going on is that America is under change, it's being changed. It's being altered seriously, not from the outside, not by invading hordes, not by the Goths are not at our gates. There are no invading armies from Russia or China or Nazi Germany or anything like that. We have been invaded by an idea.
Yeah.
An idea that has been carried into our midst by our own people, by American citizens. And as Abraham Lincoln so wisely pointed out when he was alive, was that if we ever have any serious problems, it will not be from overseas. It will spring from our midst. And so that's what really is happening. And so we are under attack of an idea. And what is this idea? Now I'm touching on the question you asked, what am I doing? What's the focus of my attention lately? And that is, I'm trying to bring to the attention of people everywhere what this idea is that's causing all this mischief. It's the idea that, in my mind, is underneath all of it. It's the cause of everything that's happening that we don't like. And it's an idea that has to do with what is the proper social, political, and economic relationship that people are supposed to have in a just society. And the idea has a name. Believe it or not, it really has a name. Most people have not heard of it, except maybe in passing. They have a very vague idea. But the proper name for this idea is collectivism. And interestingly enough, although we don't hear that word very much today, if you go back in the literature maybe 100 years, you don't have to go back 80 years to 100 years, not too far when it comes to history. Why? The word collectivism was used all the time. Authors referred to it. Speakers referred to it. It was mentioned in textbooks. It was in philosophy. And the word collectivism is used to describe a concept of how people should relate to each other in society. There are really only two concepts that need to be discussed in the Western world. All of this business about socialism, communism, Nazism, fascism, modernism, left wing, right wing, Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, neo-Nazi, all these words are relatively meaningless. They have emotional meanings, but when you come to real hardcore definitions that you can, stand on and say, well, this is what the dictionary says and so forth, they don't have much meaning. That's because they're all variants of one philosophy, and that philosophy is collectivism. These things that I just mentioned are variants. Most of them are variants. They're the same thing, and they're based on the underlying principles, and that's what my focus is, to get people to understand what are these basic principles that are common to all of the isms that we don't like. And that's why Freedom Force was founded, and that's what all of our members in Freedom Force, which are located around the world now. I was just amazed that we're revising the website now, and I had to count up the number of countries that we have members in. I was surprised. Well, we had 85 countries with members of Freedom Force in, because this ideology, this idea, this thing called collectivism is everywhere. It's infected the world, and the people in every country are aware of it, and they're doing their best to dismantle it and to oppose it with an opposite ideological point of view, which is called individualism. And once we've got these two words in front of us, collectivism versus individualism, now at last we have a foundation, a philosophical foundation for analyzing all of the major issues of the world today without having to call names and say, well, he's just a fascist, he's a Nazi, or he's a capitalist, or whatever it is. We can talk about things in real terms, in terms of what do we believe. Now, that's kind of a roundabout way of answering your question, but it's necessary, I think, to back off from the details of, like, what do you think about President Obama's speech last night? And he said we should do this, this, and this, and so forth. And we're constantly talking about issues and details, and we never get very far with that, because we need to back off and look first at the underlying principles behind these issues and these details. Now, I don't know. I probably didn't go where you wanted me to go on that.
Exactly. No, I think you did exactly.
It was very clear what you're saying, and it is an agenda. It goes beyond the president of the day of the time right now, regardless of who's in office. This is the agenda that's been pushed and has been pushed, which you talk about in your books, and that is what continues to be rolled out here, and these people are just the faces of the agenda.
Absolutely. It's one of the most important things that we talk about in Freedom Force International, is because people tend to get preoccupied with personalities and names and political parties, and they think, well, if we just get rid of this bad guy, this president or this premier or this dictator or what country we're in, we've got a bad man there, and look at him. Look at all the bad things this man does. Now, if we could just replace that man with another man, a good man, why, then all of our problems would be over. And that's the kind of depth of thinking that most people have on these issues, and have been following that for many, many decades. So what happens is eventually they do get rid of that bad man, and they get some good guy in there that they all like. But lo and behold, 5 years later, they find out, well, he's no different than the other guy, maybe worse. So that's because they don't look at the principles. They don't look at what these people believe. They listen to what they say. Like, it's easy to, condemn. We have a lot of corruption in Washington. Yeah, we have these people who can be bought, and there's a scam going on in the banking system, and so forth. It's easy to point to all the negatives and say, this is wrong, that is wrong, this person is bad, this person is a crook, and if we stop with that, we're just going to go from one crook to another, because there are plenty more waiting in the wings to replace the ones we get rid of. And until we find out what these people actually believe, and not just listen to what they say, because they always hire some expert public relations firms to find out what the voters want to hear. They spend a lot of money and time, sampling public opinion, and they find out that, well, the people want to hear this, and they want to hear that, and so they get the speechwriters, and they write those words, and the politicians, being primarily just con artists, they can give some very good speeches, and they say exactly what the voters want to hear, and the voters think, we finally got a good man. But then, as I said a moment ago, a couple of years later, we find out, well, he's no different than the other guy. And so the point is that we have to look at principles and not just names of individuals and political party identities. We've got to get down to these fundamental principles that are behind all of the issues of the day. And they do fall into the line I mentioned a moment ago, the division between collectivism and individualism. And there you have it.
I love what you wrote on your website, folks, freedomforceinternational.org. We must not be like cats. And you write that one of the most profound differences between dogs and cats is that cats focus on the effects while dogs focus on the causes. If you toss a pebble at a cat, you write it will look at the pebble. If you toss it at a dog, it will look at you. And to me, that really sums up in part what you said there. The broader scope. You're a big picture kind of guy, aren't you?
Well, yes, I guess I am. I used to consciously try to do that in order to get to the fundamental issues behind any problem, and then after a while it becomes sort of a habit, and you don't have to try anymore. It's a way of approaching problems, and I urge everybody to try and back off and look at the big picture first.
Yeah, and if we can get into some specifics here, we have in the news the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and in reading your book, The Fearful Master, you so well lay out these organizations such as the UN and the World Health Organization, the World Trade Organization, and they're working to, as you said, from within, change the way our politics operate, going from a democratic or republic to democracy. And this Trade-Pacific Partnership, from my research and our research, has shown that, like NAFTA and these unions, we see the European Union, they have the North American Union, which is there, but it's not really identified in public, and this Asian Union. This Trans-Pacific Partnership seems to be bringing this all together, and we hear a lot now about the surrendering of American sovereignty to international authorities, whether it's the new Internet handover of power or what this is speculated about this trade partnership agreement is going to do. Do you see this as the United Nations Charter being fulfilled, as George Bush said in his speech about the New World Order in 1991? Is this what we're looking at with this Trans-Pacific Partnership?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it. All of these partnerships, as they call them, these treaty organizations, are merely the building blocks of a global government. And, that's been going on for a long time, as I said earlier. And these are just the more recent blocks that are going in as they build the edifice higher and higher and higher. There are new blocks that keep going on the top row. And until finally the wall is up and we're inside it and then we're trapped. It doesn't happen all at once. People sometimes ask me, well, hey, we're worried about this new world order. This thing isn't going to be good, is it? And well, no, let's talk about that. Well, when is it going to happen? And I have to laugh because it's been happening for many, many, many years. It doesn't happen all at once. It's sometime, I guess they expect someone to ring a big bell, and the headlines will come out and say, the New World Order arrived at 2:15 this afternoon. And, no, we've been building it for many decades, one brick at a time. But now let's apply the philosophy we just discussed a moment ago and look at the big picture. Why are we concerned about that? What's wrong with world government? Is it good intrinsically? Bad? Why, are we doing a knee-jerk reaction? Oh, world government, bad. Or is sovereignty necessarily good? Well, not necessarily. Let's back off and look at the big picture. Why do we think that sovereignty is such a big deal? Why do we want to protect our sovereignty? Well, the assumption there is that as a sovereign nation, we have control over our own political destiny, and that our control is much better. The system that we live under according to our rules and preferences is better than one that would be created by other nations of the world, which is loaded with petty dictatorships, and some of them major dictatorships, all of them dictatorships, almost all of them. And so we think our dictatorship would be better than theirs. So we like the idea of sovereignty, but that isn't even going deep enough. What is wrong with world government? And the answer really is there's nothing wrong with world government until we ask the question, what kind of a world government are we talking about? You know, if a world government were based on the principles of individualism instead of collectivism, if a world government were based on the principles that were written into our original Constitution, if the world government were based on the principles of the preservation and the protection of individual rights instead of subjecting the individual to the power of the state, I would be all for it. I would swap what we have in the U.S. today in a heartbeat for world government if the world government were based on those principles that I just talked about. But it's not. And the world government that is in reality being formed at the United Nations and has been under construction for so many decades is just the opposite. It's built on the principles, the model of collectivism, the idea that all power resides in the state and authority comes from the top down, and the people have to obey the authority from the top, instead of the original concept in our Constitution, which was that the people had the power and the people were in charge of the government and the government had to obey the people. You know, it's just a topsy-turvy switch around. So here again, we have to ask the question, what kind of a world government are we talking about? And now we get down to this principle, this philosophy, the difference between individualism and collectivism, and we're back to that again, where we always wind up, no matter how hard we try to escape it, that is the issue. That is the principle behind every political issue of our day.
Very well said. Absolutely. Okay.
From the Federal Reserve in its inception to what we see today, we see this push towards global universal health care, universal economic system, one world political monetary system that is coming into fruition. And as you write in your book and explain how this was done, over decades of time, with these people laying the foundations with a blueprint since before I was born and before many were born. And how close do you think we are? I mean, hundreds of years in the planning and in the carrying out and implementation process, but would it take one economic crisis to have the world powers say we need to bring this everybody under the same economic power, same political power? I mean, or will they do this incrementally? And
well, they have been doing it incrementally, I think. But
for the final nail, I guess the question would be, how would you see this playing out to the point where the people are introduced to a world system, and not only that, are cooperating and wanting to go along with it?
Well, yeah, that's kind of a restatement of the earlier issue of when does the New World Order arrive? Will it be this year or at noon or yesterday or whatever? And I guess both points of view are valid. First of all, it is an incremental thing, and it's here. It's here now, really. It's just a question of degree. But still, your question is valid because there is a certain degree, a certain point, where I guess the game is pretty much over and the point of no return has been passed. I don't know what that is. I do know, at least I feel it in my gut, that we're very close to that. As long as we have the theoretical capability of defending ourselves against our enemies with force, if necessary, and then we still have a chance of returning. And by that I mean as long as the individual citizens still have their arms and can stand against a tyrannical regime, as long as the United States itself has control over its own military and can stand against hostile enemies from abroad, because everything always, eventually, it comes down to physical force. Can you defend yourself or can't you? If we ever get to the point where we have completely surrendered control over our own military to international forces or control, and then further, if we've allowed our population to be disarmed by either our own government or the United Nations, then I would probably say we have reached the point of no return. We're close to that, but we're not there yet.
Well, looking at, and this is something we've been doing, is looking at the geopolitical machinations of the globalists right now, and we're seeing this alignment take place, or realignment take place. I mean, and having said that, looking at the U.S. dollar, and I wrote an article back 2 years ago, we're just going to kill the dollar, and of course that was a statement by, I believe it was Timothy Geithner. However, it's unnamed official, interviewed by Kyle Bass, the economist. It was a reply in response to a question about jobs and unemployment, but that was the answer by this unnamed administration official. We're just going to kill the dollar. I forgot where I was going with that question. Anyway, I guess perhaps my question would be, we're looking at some dismal numbers here. We're looking at, economic numbers. We're looking at some rumors of imminent economic collapse. Do you see an imminent economic collapse? I mean, when I say imminent, I'm talking this year, without overstating necessarily the case. And I'm not asking you to date that. I mean, because you go on various websites, and people have,
it's a tough question, and that everybody wants to know because they want to plan.
Sure.
And the reason I'm laughing is not because I think the question is absurd, because it's not. I'm laughing because I'm terrible at answering that question. I've been observing this trend for many, many years, and when I first got a whole grip around this topic back in the 1960s, when I finally realized the size and the scope of this problem, I really believed that the economy was going to go completely kaput before the end of the 1960s.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I didn't think it could possibly survive, at the rate it was going. Well, obviously, I was wrong on timing. Now, I was certainly 100% accurate in terms of the process, and I'm quite certain that it can't go on forever. But I had totally underestimated the resiliency of the American economy to withstand these attacks against it. I had underestimated the determination of the American people to continue working, even though the rewards for working were being constantly dwindling, taken away from them, even though more and more of their income was being taken, and the incentives to work were being dwindled, and more people were going on to the dole, and fewer of the population, in terms of percentage at least, was supplying all the money to do everything. I thought, this process can't go on any longer, and I thought everybody would give up and say, why should I work for a living when I can't keep the fruits of my labor anyway? But so I just underestimated the ability of the middle class to continue to carry the load, and even though the load was getting larger and larger. So anyway, we come back now to today. How much longer can this go on? I don't know, but I do know it can't go on forever. I remember years ago, I was talking to some farmer up in the northern part of the U.S. I think it was Montana. We were talking about blizzards, and I said, how long has it been since you had a real good blizzard up here? He said, it's been about 7 years. I said, well, do you think the next blizzard is coming along pretty soon? When do you expect the next one? And he looked at me like, he looked at me like he should have, like I was some city kid that didn't know what I was talking about. He said, well, son, he says, I don't really know when the next one's coming along, but I know it's coming, and so I don't worry too much about the date. I'm just ready for it.
There you go.
I think that's just the way we should look at these economic issues.
Well, the you being an expert, in my opinion, on the Federal Reserve and the Federal Reserve System and monetary policy, let's look at it just from that standpoint. Since the inception of the Federal Reserve, they've had a charter with the U.S. to create the money for them, and we use the money at interest. For the Federal Reserve as an organization, in any of your research, have you ever come across any statements or publications where they have an end game or a plan to exit the controls and kind of taper off from being a part of the economy?
What, the Federal Reserve?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I've never seen anything. I've never seen anything like that. I'd be very surprised if there were such a thing, because it's contrary to the nature of the beast. When we consider that the Federal Reserve is a cartel, it's a group of banks. It's a cartel, like the oil cartel or the banana cartel. It's a group of large commercial entities, in this case the largest banks in the U.S., with close ties around the world, but still it's a U.S. phenomenon. And they exist for one purpose only, which is to protect and expand the benefit of its members. And so it's hard to imagine that the banks would ever see any financial advantage to them to say, well, let's cut back our power and our influence. It doesn't make any sense.
Consolidation. A Federal Reserve consolidation into a more IMF-type World Bank.
Yeah, that was going to be my re-asking the question. Under a globalist monetary system, would the Federal Reserve morph into what position would the Federal Reserve play in a globalist monetary system or a one world economic system, if you see that happening?
Yeah, I do see that happening, because that is how they're going to kill the dollar, and yet reincarnate it in some other form. They don't talk about that part. They kill the dollar, but they don't just walk away from all that power. They have already got a new monetary system in place to assume all of the authority and the financial power that the U.S. dollar had at one time. And that'll be a regional or an international currency, probably called the Bancor or something like that. But they will never just walk away from power until they already have a mechanism in place to transfer it to some other structure that they also control. And it's hard for people to realize, even for me, I've been dwelling on this for years, but it's hard for me to realize that these people do not think of themselves as Americans. They may be American citizens. They live in America. They are, of course, internationalists in their thinking, but still they live in America, and they benefit from this system, and yet they don't consider themselves to be Americans first. They consider themselves to be members of the global community first, and America, if necessary, has to be sacrificed for the greater good of the global community. And that is, by the way, one of the principles of collectivism, that the individual must be sacrificed, if necessary, for the greater good, for the greater number. That's one of the principles of this thing that we're fighting. And so these guys are collectivists from top to bottom, and they view the United States as, well, it's our country and all that, but if we have to sacrifice it for the greater good of the world, out it goes.
Yeah, and David Rockefeller in his memoirs wrote, people accuse us and our family of being a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States. And if that is the charge, I am guilty and proud of it, to paraphrase what he said. And it's exactly what you're talking about. These people will use the system.
Yeah. And all of these people are proud of it. If you understand what they really mean, it isn't that they are anti-American as such. It's that they're pro-global. And that is a bigger goal, a bigger idealism for them than being pro-American.
Interesting. Folks, if you're just joining us, we are talking with the legendary G. Edward Griffin. His website, freedom freedomforceinternational.org. That's freedomforceinternational.org. Please definitely visit the website. Become a part of the Defenders of Liberty there at freedomforceinternational.org, and it's linked off of hagmanandhagmann.com. Certainly you can get there, and it's our pleasure to have him with us up till the top of this hour.
We are a show that talks about current events through a biblical perspective, and what we see happening today is what was prophesied about that would happen in the Bible, a reoccurring of a one-world system that incorporated everything, including first and foremost worship or religion. And it just seems as though these things are happening as the Bible said, and these people who are controlling and calling the shots are almost following the Bible narrative to fulfill their role. And it seems like prophecy is playing out. And I bring that up because the Middle East, the turmoil that we see in the Middle East, the tens of millions of people who are now refugees or have had to flee their homes, the countless number of victims, whether from fighting or from being persecuted for their faith. How do you see this playing out in the Middle East? I mean, will we ever see this unrest and instability end, or are they going to continue to destabilize that region and to a point where they have no other choice, them being the people who live in the Middle East, but to rebuild it based on this westernized system?
It's kind of a left-handed question.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting question because there's some interesting assumptions there, and one of them I think is very profound, and that is that the troubles in the Middle East are really, well, they're partly, their origin is partly from the Middle East itself, of course, of the age-old conflicts there and animosities that have accumulated. But as your question suggests, the destabilization is being inflicted upon these poor people by Western governments for a specific purpose of breaking down whatever system there is there, to utilize these old animosities, to destabilize these countries so the governments of these countries can be overthrown and that new puppets can be put into place that are subservient to this cabal that we're talking about. And the people in the Middle East, even though they're being motivated by ancient animosities, this is all being aggravated by conscious, deliberate, cunning destabilization of practically every country over in that region, and it's a crime against humanity when people understand, who's really behind it. These revolutions are being imported into those countries.
Exactly.
Yeah, kind of like the agitators are being poured into the cities of protest turns into riots here, as we see the unrest through racial and class lines start to heat up as this summer comes along. And we've received intelligence from people in different fields from the medical industry talking about
and from DHS too.
Yeah, them being warned by the federal government to prepare their hospitals for mass trauma, mass casualty events due to unsustained or uncontrollable riots in certain areas. And they see the potential for a huge uptick in social unrest here in the United States. And I'm not sure, have you heard that they are planning for these an uptick of riots or preparing for problems that we have yet to see?
Absolutely. The preparations have been going on for decades. This is a long-range plan. I think that was one of the topics we started off with. What we see today is a continuation of what's been going on for decades. I remember, I think it was at least 20 years ago. I was in an airplane and I sat next to a gentleman who was a contractor, a military contractor, and we were coming back from Washington D.C. and we got to chatting, and he asked me what I did, and I told him I was a writer and I wrote in some historical events, and I asked him what he did. He said, "Oh well, I'm with the military," and even though he was a civilian, I think he was a retired colonel, and he said we're revamping our vehicles and looking for the long view of different kinds of vehicles. And I said, well, what does that mean? He said, oh, well, it means simply this, that we're concentrating now on troop carriers and vehicles that will handle civil unrest. I said, well, what do you mean civil? What do we care about civil unrest in other countries? And he said, no, not other countries, in the U.S. And I was stunned. I thought, you mean the military now is looking ahead and revamping their contract specifications to develop types of vehicles that will be specifically efficient in civil unrest in the United States? And this was 20 years ago. I was just sort of knocked off my seat on that. So this is a long-range plan. They could see that 20 years ago. And the United Nations is, and in fact, the federal government of the U.S. has been issuing papers for a long, long time to local governments saying, prepare, unrest is coming. You better have military equipment that's designed for controlling the population. You better have detention camps all ready for this, for storing huge numbers of people. I mean, they deal with these things as a matter of fact. It's very emotionless. There's no passion about it. Just, well, folks, this is what's happening, and this is what we have to do, A, B, C. So, yeah, they're ready for it, and it's coming.
Okay. If you'll allow me.
And I guess the most important thing to say about that is coming because it's being made to come. It's not just happening. It's being generated.
Okay. And we're allowing it to be generated. The population is, I mean, we're watching it. Do you think most people understand what's going on? I mean, really understand what's going on? Or is it just a minority population of the population that really understands what's going on?
Well, I think very, very few people really understand what's going on. They find it very hard to believe that there's anybody that would really want to see civil unrest or destabilization of governments. They find it very hard to believe that chaos is a deliberate, let's say, a strategic weapon to be used for political gain. They just don't see it that way.
Yeah. Okay. I probably should have added the statement, or said it another way. I think a lot of people feel helpless too, or they don't know what to do. I mean, what would you advise the middle class American citizen or middle class of any Western country? What can we do to push back, to fight against this, to delay this, to
mitigate it?
Yeah. What can we do?
Well, there are two things that need to be done, and now we're talking about Freedom Force. That's why Freedom Force was created, is to accomplish these two things. The first is to really understand the strategies that are being used, to understand what who the enemy really is. The enemy is collectivism. It's it's no particular nation. It's no political party. It's a group of people who are around the world that share this concept of global government based on the model of collectivism. Once you understand, that is really the problem, that's the first step. The next step is, well, we've got to do something about it, and what's that? Well, we've got to reacquire control over our own political systems. We can't just sit around and wring our hands and watch television and write letters to our congressmen. We've got to get up off of our couches and out there into the public where people really are. We've got to become active in the power centers of society, mainly meaning the political movements of each country. We've got to become active in politics, active in the media. We have to offer ourselves for leadership in the most important organizations that determine public opinion in the nation. We have to reach for power, in other words, because as long as we're on the outside looking in, and it's like standing outside the window, looking through on the inside and saying, oh, you people in there who are running everything, won't you please listen to our protests? Won't you please read our letters? Won't you please do what you're supposed to do and follow the Constitution? Please, please. But what a laugh. That's what's been going on. We have to get inside the halls of power. We have a motto in Freedom Force. It says it all. It says, why fight City Hall when you can be City Hall? And there is a solution.
There you go. All right. And okay, and I would urge everyone, folks having looked at freedomforceinternational.org, we get all kinds of emails saying, well, we're just one person. I'm just one person. What can I do? Or, a lot of times we get emails saying, well, you talk about the problems, but you don't talk about the solutions. Well, Freedom Force International is a solution, or the vehicle to a solution. Again, freedomforceinternational.org. What is it that, Mr. Griffin, what is it that members can and do? What just if you can, and I know we're short on time here, let's talk more about Freedom Force International.
Yeah, okay, that's my favorite topic.
Okay.
And it actually, the answer to the question, what does Freedom Force do, is a startling answer, because Freedom Force doesn't do anything. And the proper response is, huh? How can that be? Well, no, the organization does very little. It's primarily a network of people. But the people get together, and they form liaisons with each other, and they help each other become active in the power centers of society. And acting in other organizations, they do everything. And I think the best way is to analyze an organization of collectivists. Some people call them the hidden government of the United States. It's called the Council on Foreign Relations. It's a group of about 4,000 people here in the U.S. Only 4,000. There are a lot of churches in communities that have that many members. But if I were to say to somebody that the members of this one church happen to be in all of the control offices in the political parties and in the government and in the media and in the think tanks and in the labor unions. In other words, if that 4,000 was in charge of everything important in America, wouldn't you be curious about it? And that is basically what is true with the Council on Foreign Relations. The CFR has its members at the top of all of the media organizations, the networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, Turner Network, the New York Times, Los Angeles Times, Time Magazine, Life Magazine. You go on down the list. Everywhere you look, the big tax-exempt foundations, they're in the Senate, they're in the Congress, they're in the Supreme Court, they're the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, the head of the CIA. Everywhere you look, who are these people? Oh, well, they're a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. What is that? And people don't even know it exists for the most part, but there it is. Now, that is the role model in a way. Now, the Council on Foreign Relations doesn't do anything except hold conferences now and then, and it publishes a monthly magazine, it used to be a quarterly, called Foreign Affairs, and it just sets policies, and it introduces people to each other. It allows them to network with each other, and then they go into the power centers of society and make it happen. And that's what we have to do, and that's how Freedom Force International is formed.
Interesting. So you're an umbrella, or you're the infrastructure for people, members, to go out and to, could I say, infiltrate? I don't want to make it sound subversive, but
well, no, you could make it sound subversive, and I'm sure that our opposition will do everything they could to make it sound like, oh, you're infiltrating. Well, we're not infiltrating any more than the Council on Foreign Relations infiltrates into organizations. No, what we ask our members to do is to pick the critically important power centers of society, and if any of them appeal to them and they feel that they should be in there to help set policy on behalf of freedom, on behalf of individualism instead of collectivism, well, then why not go get active in it and support them and not infiltrate it? Just tell everybody what you believe in and tell them you want to go in and help and do the work. Nothing secret about it, nothing subversive about it, nothing covert. Everything's done out in the open. But just go in and volunteer and become active, and the first thing you know, most people don't want to do any work. So it's, the ones that go into the PTA and are volunteering to do the work, first thing you know, within a few months they're all in charge of the PTA. All organizations are like that.
Very true.
Yeah.
And everyone wants to be a keyboard warrior, but no one wants to go out and get their hands dirty, and that's kind of where we find ourselves right now. And granted, some people can't, physically impaired or otherwise impaired, but those who can should.
And I wanted to ask you about this. We have this wonderful tool of the internet, which allows people, like-minded people, to connect and to take action together, and it's a real tool, if used properly, to bring people together. Do you have any concerns or ideas on this net neutrality, on what conservatives, we see what the IRS did to the Tea Party. We see the president making comments on how the media is going to need to change the way that they report on stories, and we see this net neutrality, also the internet power being handed over. Do you see a battle coming for like-minded free thinkers who think outside of the box and them getting their message across the internet? Do you see that the potential for censorship there? And do you expect that?
Huge potential, yeah. And once again, it's not a new battle. It's been going on since the very beginning, but it's heating up now. And this whole issue of net neutrality was very cleverly designed to make it sound very appealing, like they're defending the underdog, the guy that, the little keyboard warrior, as you call him so well. We don't want him to have to pay through the nose for services that big corporations can easily handle. So it had the smell of being a defense of the underdog. Everybody was all for it, but what they didn't realize is that in the process, the whole concept was to turn regulation over to who? The federal government. Those are trustworthy people. So that the federal government will have more and more control over the internet. And guess what? When that happens, then the underdog is out of business. And so that's what's happening. And it's a huge battle because if they ever get control of the internet and can determine who is qualified and who is banned to be on the internet, to express views, to publish their points of view or information, then it's going to be very, very difficult for people like me and all of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people who see this battle as we do. It'll be very difficult for them to find any way to communicate their ideas.
Very true. We only have just about 5 minutes left of your time, and this is a question I want to ask you because you do so many interviews on so many stations and network programs. And this might sound like an odd question for you, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What question do you wish that interviewers ask that you have not been asked? In other words, I've been frustrated myself with some interviews sometimes not being asked a certain question because, it seems to strike at the core of the issues, the core of what we're seeing today. And sometimes as an interviewer, I fear that we don't ask the right questions. So let me ask you, what questions should we be asking, or should we have asked you, or should we be asking you that would really strike at the heart, strike at the core of everything that's going on today around us, and that would address our future? Because I don't want to have you depart and say, you know what, boy, those rum-dums should have asked this question, and they didn't, and they squandered that chance.
Well, no fear of that happening. Actually, you gentlemen asked exactly the question that I hope people will ask me on interviews. And if they don't, I try and steer it that way anyway. But the question is, what's going on behind the scenes? What is the bigger picture? And what is the solution? Those are the questions that we need to talk about. Not, did you hear what happened so bad today? And, this bad person said that. And, that you can go on with complaints. But any question that points in the direction of the solution and the underlying philosophy that permeates all of the issues that are plaguing us, those are the questions I like to hear because they lead to constructive answers. They lead to areas of information that people need to know about. And hopefully it'll open up a lot of hope for people to see that there are things that can be done, and to encourage people and hopefully motivate them to become active in the solution instead of just complaining about the problem.
All right. Carrie, listening live from Stuttgart, Germany, where it's got to be either early or pretty late there, wants to know, expat from the United States, if you believe, is America, have we passed, as a country, as a nation, have we passed the point of no return, in your view?
Hard question. I would like to cut the line in the answer to that by saying, as a government, yes, we have. But as a nation, as a country, as a group of people who have the spirit and the idea and the will, we haven't even begun to reach that point. I have a great deal of hope among the people of America, as in the people of Germany and France and England and everywhere in the world. It's the people I have hoped in. But when we talk about governments, which is a whole different thing, I'm afraid the corruption is so deep that it's hard to imagine that can ever be undone. So that leads back to the Freedom Force solution, which is we need to swap out governments for something called protectorates, where the whole purpose of the state is not to govern its citizens, not to be governments and govern, but to be a protectorate and to protect its citizens, and that's all.
Fantastic. Wow. FreedomForceInternational.org, FreedomForceInternational.org. G. Edward Griffin, man, I'll tell you what, it's been a fantastic interview. I know that you're pressed for time, you have some things to do. We're going to cut you loose, but boy, I hope we can have you on again at some future time. Talk more. Just sit around the, shall we say, the conference table and just have a discussion about things.
Perhaps that's where it all starts, with ideas.
Yeah. Indeed. Mr. Griffin, God bless you, my friend. Thank you so much for appearing on the Hagmann Hagmann Report. We hope that you'll remember this interview fondly and again, come back and visit with us some more, impart some of your wisdom. FreedomForceInternational.org. That's the place to go. Become
very good. Well, we'll see you all there then. Thank you.
All right. God bless.
Thanks, Mr. Griffin.
Joe, that was he's a fantastic man, a wonderful writer, wonderful
Absolutely,
speaker,
and I wish we had more time to get into more information and topics, but his time is valuable. He's in high demand, and we definitely appreciate the time that he did spend with us, as it was a very excellent interview, and it went just by the blink of an eye.
Well, FreedomForceInternational.org is much like HH Connections. It really is, okay? Folks, if you haven't become part of HH Connections, under the show information for today, it says new initiative, send an email to hhconnections@startmail.com. Just introduce yourself, okay? And become a part of our Christian family, a family of people that, it consists of prayer warriors, of doers. But in addition to that, FreedomForceInternational.org, G. Edward Griffin's initiative, very similar, very parallel, but, infiltrate, involving themselves into various groups. Very necessary, I think, at this point. What do you think? I mean, Joe, it's and if you combine those two, my goodness, I just see a force to be reckoned with.
Absolutely, they are, and it gives more people more recourse to more ability to voice their opinion, to share ideas, to get involved and take a stance and be a part of the solution rather than sitting on the sidelines being a part of the problem. With that, we're at the top of the hour break, folks. You're listening to the Hagmann Hagmann Report on this Wednesday, May 20th, 2015. Yes, I just had to think in my head.
You had to think of what day it is?
Yes, I did. And the only thing that saved me there was that Ted Broer's on Thursday, and he's not on today. So
guess what? Guess what, folks? Paul McGuire Friday, and I spoke with Joni today about Paul McGuire coming on. Paul McGuire,
she's a great lady, by the way.
Oh, fantastic person. You know, everyone really. I mean, Paul McGuire, fantastic man. Joni is such a great, precious woman. But Paul's got a sense of urgency, and he wants to get some information out. So expect him to be on with more frequency. He's got some things to talk about, and very important things. But I just want to let you know about that.
Excellent. Always love when Mr. Paul McGuire comes on. Ladies and gentlemen, hour number 2 this Wednesday, May 20th edition of the Hagmann Hagmann Report. If you joined us late, hour number 1, we were joined by Mr. G. Edward Griffin, legendary author and speaker. Just a fantastic, really quick interview that went by.
He had really. I mean, although this is planned in advance, he had some things that were pressing that he had to attend to. But we're going to have him back. But you know what? The one thing I want to just make clear on this, Joe, if I can, freedomforceinternational.org. One thing that they talk about, and one thing that Mr. Griffin talks about, is the difference between core issues and collateral issues. And if you remember at the first part of the interview where he talked about the isms are part of a larger collective, and that's important for us to understand, I think. And this is what we're seeing play out today. It's a bigger picture. It's a portrait. It's the mosaic that we're looking at, not pieces of the mosaic. And the pieces of the mosaic, sometimes people get really focused upon. One of the pieces of the mosaic, for example, in the free speech event in Texas, Garland, Texas, where the 2 jihad animals were shot and killed, and they were going to go in and shoot up the participants there. Well, without respect to the blowback against Pamela Geller and Robert Spencer, moving that aside, everyone says, well, Islam is a religion, is a savage religion. Okay, that's true. Don't stop there. Look at what's behind it, what's propelling it. Look at look at the hidden hand. Okay, that's the bigger picture. Yes, but Islam is a tool. Okay, it's a tool of the globalists. It's a tool of the people inside this country. They're the foot soldiers for the terrorism here. There is Islamic terrorism. There is Islamic terrorism. Do not make any mistake about it. However, it's being managed. So we've got to look at the bigger picture. Joe, go ahead, sir.
Yes, we do. In some news from today, from The Economist, the caliphate strikes back. The fall of Ramadi shows the Islamic State is still in business. For months, Iraqis were told that the Islamic State was on their way out. In April, Haider, the prime minister, declared that he had won the psychological battle after chasing the jihadists from Tikrit to Saddam Hussein's old town. Baghdadis played pop songs mocking ISIS on their car radios. But Ramadi's fall on May 15th was punctured that optimism, and the streets again were filled with foreboding. ISIS is a short drive away, and its menaces the oil refineries and power plants at Baghdad depends on. It goes on to talk about for almost a year now, the American-led bombardment of the Iranian-backed ground operation appears unbowed. It has suffered reverses. It has lost territory to the Kurds as well as the Baghdad government. It has seen some commanders, including its deputy leader, killed by an American bomb. Air raids have wrecked oil installations it controls, slashing its revenue. But its support base of foreign and local fighters remains strong. Its deployment of convoys of suicide bombers and 15-ton truck renders futile attempts to hold fortified lines. It's pushing forward against Anbar, the heartland of Iraqi Sunni tribes. Therefore, fertile ground for ISIS which has drawn much of its support from the Sunnis, feared and marginalized by the Shia-dominated government in Baghdad, but also has been gaining ground in Syria this week, menacing the Roman-era archaeological treasure of Palmyra. This is important.
Wait a second. I just want to ask you, Joe, and the listeners to consider something. Right before 9/11, you saw the Taliban destroy some artifacts, ancient artifacts in Afghanistan. Do you remember that? Do people remember that?
I don't remember that.
Okay.
The only thing I remember about Al Qaeda was the USS Cole
the
bombing.
Taliban.
The Taliban, well, same difference.
Well, yeah, so, okay, yeah, pretty much. But there was, I think, maybe I don't know, a month or so, and I could be wrong on the timing. They destroyed the statues, the huge statues. Now, it's my belief that there is a deliberate erasure, a censorship of antiquity here taking place, and I think it's being guided or being managed at higher levels. And ISIS or the it would be like well, it would be like a management system where you've got your workers and then you've got your managers and upper level supervisors. Well, sorry about that. I don't know whether people heard that or not. That was a siren that just went off.
The websites that play videos when they are on too long or whatever.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we've got a sound booth here that wow, that came through like I don't know whether people are anyway. So but you know, Steve Quayle talks about the hiding and for example going into Iraq and how Americans went into Iraq, and did we take out things like DNA from hybrids, or you know, there's something else going on here with ISIS. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make in that respect with the antiquities in the Middle East that we were not able to get our hands on before this change of well, and no one's talking about this. So I believe that's part of it. And then when you get done with this, I do want to talk about ISIS here in the United States.
Well, you can go. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, okay. The other part of this too is we're hearing about ISIS advancements in the Middle East. That's fine. Well, you're hearing every now and again about ISIS being present here in this country. The operatives of ISIS
not only being present, having, as you pointed out, and we did in the Prophecy in the News Conference, terror camps, training camps.
Right.
And they have an organization and infrastructure that is well beyond the scope of what we understand or are told about.
Yeah, you know,
whether that's Western intelligence that is, propagating this, or it's, a solo thing, they're there.
Well, it frustrated me back in 2004 and 5 and 6 when we did, and I'm going to talk as an investigator right now, when we went out and we investigated the Sheikh Mubarak Ali Jalani's group, which Jamaat al-Fukra, when we did the covert surveillance of the headquarters in Hancock, New York, at the base of the Catskills, and our findings were pretty intense. Concurrent to that, we were doing surveillance in the city of Buffalo. Now, Jamaat al-Fukra, headed by Jalani out of Lahore, Pakistan, has a network of training camps called Jamaats here in the United States. They reached their height of activity back in the 1980s. Jalani came to Brooklyn in, I think it was 79, and set out to establish these camps. Okay. And, of course, they were involved in murders and fire bombings and a lot of arsons, insurance fraud. I mean, I could tick off a whole list of crimes that they were involved in, kidnappings. So fast forward, at the height of their operational, and the Beltway snipers, Muhammad and Malvo, were associated with these Jamaats, or the Jamaat al-Fukra organization. And you won't hear that in the media. Okay, today, and I'm seeing this resurgence because the talk of ISIS being in this country. I'm seeing this resurgence of interest with respect to these terrorist training camps in the United States. Well, folks, let me tell you something. The information you're seeing on the internet is old, and a lot of the photographs that you're seeing, I took. Okay? I took. Now, that's not to say, yay me. It's really weird to go to a website to see a photograph of these encampments, and whether it's Virginia, Red House, Virginia, or Hancock, New York, and I'm looking at my own photograph with a caption that is not exactly what it represents or is purported to be, or is actually. It's not what it should be. Now, these Jamaats under Jilani are comprised primarily of black Muslims. This group is loosely affiliated at the very fringes of this group with the Nation of Islam. At the very fringes. You have to kind of go 2 or 3 different steps to get to that point. All right? And the FBI throughout the United States, they're not only aware of these camps, but have openly infiltrated these camps. But when I say infiltrated, I'm not talking about secretly, covertly gone in there and become a confidential operational asset. No, they're buying these guys lunch. Literally, black Muslim Jamaat al-Fukra infrastructure. From a high, and I've been quoted by the, the organized crime, within the digest of the organized crime, published by the federal government, as well as the Department of Defense, as my investigative documents and quotes. Now, having said that, from a high of maybe 36 camps in the mid-'80s, early '90s, they've now consolidated, and this is important to understand, Jamaat al-Fukr only, they've consolidated their operation down to roughly 22 to 24 camps. Now, I've seen people on forums say, oh, there's 30 some. Well, that's old information. Although they've consolidated, they've gotten a lot more intelligent. They've gotten a lot more cagey, covert. And they have, these camps are primarily out in the boonies, out in the sticks, out in the urban area, or suburban areas, way out in the rural areas, I should say. They're usually located along rail lines near critical areas of infrastructure, especially water reservoirs. In fact, the camp where we were at and did covert surveillance is located very close to a reservoir that supplied water to New York City. There was conversation about how they were going to poison or wanted to poison the water that services the New York City water system.
Oh, and haven't they been caught, some people caught underwater taking pictures of infrastructure?
No, exactly. And I'm glad you brought this up, because Steve Quayle and I reported, this is back in '06, I believe it was, Skip, who passed away of
I remember
cancer at a very young age.
Guy.
Yeah, nice man. He lived in Buffalo, and he and I mean, this guy would work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and not ask for anything in return. I mean, he's just a fantastic man. And I said, hey, Skip, and again, this is back in '05, I think it was. I said, hey, can you give me a hand here? I want to take a look at something in Newburgh, New York. And he said, sure. Well, he drove 90 miles out of his way to meet me, just to drive 90 miles in the opposite direction, or in the direction from which he came, to conduct this surveillance, and add another 300 miles on top of that. So, what a nice guy. But having said that, we conducted surveillance around a nuclear power plant and did an investigation where there was a report of a diver that was found near the intake of a nuclear power plant near the Hudson Valley, or in the Hudson River Valley in New York State. This is at a time, and Steve Quayle and I reported on this, at a time when there were two incidents of divers, dead ones being found near nuclear power plants, and you didn't hear anything more about it. What were they doing there? Well, our investigation suggests or for the findings of our investigation suggests that they were looking at the sabotaging from exploiting the security flaws from the waterways of these nuclear power plants. But you will not hear this on the news. Now, this again is the Jamaat al-Fukra crowd. Now, let's back away for a moment. Concurrent to this, and this is where ISIS comes in, you've got mosques in this country that are actively seditious and harboring individuals sympathetic with, or actively supporting ISIS overseas. Think of the mosques as transit ways and logistical support centers in this country, right under the noses of our government officials. The activity at the mosques, many that are associated, and I will say this, and I want to say this very clearly, the Council on American Islamic Relations, CAIR, is protecting, the organization they're protecting the mosques, the imams of the mosques, and they're running interference, very effective interference. Anyone who would dare say anything against a mosque or the imam or what's taking place gets labeled an Islamophobe. CAIR, of course, is the unindicted co-conspirator organization of the Holy Land Foundation trial back in the mid-2000s, or 2000, what was it, 2007, 2008, whatever it was, back in that time period. Now, where ISIS comes in, the open southern border has allowed many to come in illegally. Meanwhile, the federal government has granted refugee and political asylum status to various people from Syria, from Iraq and Afghanistan and other locations, war-torn locations in the Middle East, brought them here to this country, and even Africa, including, for example, Somalia. Very large population of Somalians in Milwaukee, the Twin Cities, in Minnesota. Now, these people are the ones that are the Arab Muslims, are the ones who are supporting and actively advancing the objectives of the ISIS sympathizers. These are the people now who are working concurrent with, but not hand in hand with, the Jamaat al-Fukra crowd. Jamaat al-Fukra crowd is, again, at its periphery tied with the Nation of Islam. They're going in a different direction. The mosque side, the Arab Muslim side, is the ISIS sympathizers for the most part. Okay, so that's an important distinction to make. And what we're seeing right now is heightened activity of both groups. You've got some paramilitary training going on on both sides, because when we conducted our investigation in various locations, including but not limited to a mosque associated with the Islamic Society of North America, that's ISNA, in Buffalo, New York, we found some extremely interesting activities that would any sane, rational person would look at the activities and say, okay, there appears to be paramilitary training taking place. Watch right now what's taking place, and I'm going to turn it back over to you, Joe, but watch what's taking place right now with the mosques erecting walls, installing these ultra communication systems within, around their at their perimeter. They're buying up entire city blocks, including houses. In fact, when we first, well, I shouldn't say first, we watched a mosque/Islamic school build up from something quite simple to the Islamic Society of North America in Buffalo, New York, buying pieces of property all around the mosque as if to create this security perimeter. So when we would go in with the surveillance van, the people at the periphery, the security perimeter, would see a foreign vehicle, a vehicle not indigenous to the neighborhood, and we would actually watch them on the porch of their home, or from a convenience store, also owned by a member of the Islamic Society of North America, or whatever the affiliation of the mosque would be, contact various security personnel of the mosque, notifying them of our presence. In all cases, in both the Jamaat al-Fukr cases as well as the mosque cases, we found 100% of the time, and this is important, 100% of the time, the members of the domestic intelligence community, whether it's the Department of Justice, the FBI, there's a distinction with a difference there, being notified or giving assistance to both parties, okay, to both groups. Bottom line here, where we're at in 2015, as we watch the progression from 2005 forward, we now have mosques that have at least doubled in number, and Islamic centers and schools that have doubled in number here domestically, that are actually have arms, members with I don't like to use the word cache of weapons or the phrase cache of weapons, but you're seeing this buildup of weaponry, and they are expecting a civil war. They are expecting to exploit any type of racial and or civil war caused by the economy or whatever here in this country, working independent from one another, yet concurrent with each other. I don't know if that makes sense, but the bottom line here is you've got multiple parties, armies here in this country that are embedded, operating under the umbrella of a religious institution. It's really, I mean, it's a religious group, Islam. However, it's a political and military organization, and I emphasize military because at this point, this is where the serious nature, this is where the seriousness of this comes in. This is not old news. This is not news from 2005. This is news from 2015, as we have gone out recently and have tasked others to go out and to take a look at, to pull property records. How much more? I mean, how many more layers of property have the ISNA purchased? How have they expanded? What have they done? What's the demographics, the numbers, the people inside the mosques, the attendees? And we're seeing this huge influx, this huge increase of militant members who are ready for battle. And trust me when I say that this is going to come into effect in the near term. And I think, I haven't talked to Paul McGuire about this. Now, Steve and I have talked about this. But folks, we are in for a battle, and those who say bring it, I understand that sentiment. I do. I get it. But be careful what you wish for. Okay, I'd much rather not bring it. I'd much rather be able to neutralize or to, let's just not have the threat. But this threat was created by the people in the State Department. The threat was created by people in the government, in the intelligence world, not just under Obama. Oh, it flamed forward under Obama, but George W. Bush was an integral part of it, and his State Department, as well as Clinton. And we could trace, to be fair, go back to Carter in terms of the domestic rise of Islam, or the rise of Islam domestically. With the February 1979 Iranian Revolution, that the State Department brought more people here to this country at that time. So you've got to look at this in a larger sense, and I just really want to drive this point home, that we are looking at a flashpoint, that we're approaching a flashpoint here, and the so-called moderate Muslims of the news who say moderate Muslims, you're not going to find moderate Muslims. You're going to be hard-pressed, I would say, as the numbers rise, the moderate Muslims, or the Muslims who are considered moderate, will fall. That number will change to activists, and they're just waiting for that demographic. And that demographic is reaching that critical mass very quickly. And it's kind of like the debt under Bush, now under Obama. It's almost identical. You could probably draw a graph, and it's probably consistent with the debt, although totally separate but consistent in terms of the graph. So hopefully I made sense in this. And this is what we have to watch and be very careful, because we will see. Remember what the Malvo and the D.C. snipers did to D.C. for that period of time, in what was it, October of 01 or 02, I don't recall. Remember what the D.C. snipers did, the Beltway snipers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Think of that.
Terror. I mean, the whole situation or purpose behind that was the mass serial killings was due to the wanting his ex-wife to be killed without suspicion of him doing it.
Excuse me?
Yeah, the Malvo.
Right, but well, that's what they said, right? I mean,
right, but the terror that brought to that region, I mean, they were able to do it, and I remember, every other day, every day, reading another story about how they struck again, and nobody could figure out how they did it.
By the way, that was October of 2002, and yeah, you're right. There was that element of to cover a certain shooting, but that was at its
yeah.
No,
it wasn't
no.
Towards the point of what you're
right. Yeah, that was, I think, like 7-8 months before. But anyway, before the initial round of shootings. But think of the Beltway sniper attacks but think of that on a larger scale. And this is what we're looking at. I'm not saying we're going to have sniper attacks across the country. I'm saying that the effect that caused, that's the effect that we're looking at. The unchecked terrorism here. Now, Islamic sponsored, but domestically managed. And you've got to understand the domestic management, because without understanding domestic management, you will not see beyond the blindness of, you'll stop at that Islamic aspect, and that'll be the end of it. Well, wait a minute. We're allowing this to take place, and not just allowing it, but we are cultivating it. When I say we, I'm referring to the government and the intelligence agencies that are behind this, and we know this. But so we are getting a lot more, looking at a lot more chatter. I hate that word too. We're looking at a lot more communications in-your-face communications on the Arabic language websites, which we have now, which we are monitoring a lot more now. I mean, when I say now, I'm talking over the last week since we've been in our studios. We've got the room, we've got the equipment. Now we are able to keep some stuff in real time, or to keep the watch in real time. Now we've got the ability. But what we're seeing, and we've had it before, but there were moments, snapshots. Now we've got this continuous period of surveillance, of hands-off surveillance, of in the background, not the intelligence. Hey, let's do this and do that. So what we're seeing now is more a bravado and more people who are saying, okay, go ahead, let's cause jihad against the American people. And we're seeing this ramp up exponentially. And even over the last week, we've seen this. Now, it ebbs and flows, but boy, is it really flowing right now. So be very aware of this and understand that this is under the management, at worst, perhaps under the tacit, tacit approval of the federal government. And there is a direct connection. Lastly, there's a direct connection between the placement. You'll hear about, we've been infiltrated. People will say, well, there have been 6 Muslim Brotherhood members that have been part of DHS or part of the Obama regime. Well, that's true. But there are countless others at lower levels who are doing much more damage and who are exploiting the system much greater than those 6. I'm not trying to diminish the damage caused by those 6 or those 8 Muslim Brotherhood members, but I'm saying that's not the whole story. Boy, I just hope I made sense. We're looking at this from a bird's eye view and saying, okay, this is what we've got to look at. So in your community, and if you live in a city of over 250,000 in this country, I guarantee you will have a cell, operational cell, that is not only known to authorities, the federal officials, but there's some level of it goes beyond oversight. It gets involved in, I'll just say management. And as sorry and as crazy as that sounds, you've got to understand too what this government, or what this criminal cabal of rogue criminals in our government, what their intent is, and their intent is to create such an unworkable environment in this country. So it's coming, and that kind of segues into what you've got. I think we should probably touch on this again. The information we got here in the last few days with respect to the about Cleveland.
Yeah, there is. For those who might have missed it, both my father and I received information from 2 separate sources on hospitals in the area being prompted by the federal government to be prepared for potential mass casualty / trauma events or situations and overflow from other hospitals due to potential riots that are they have not been checked or taken under control by any authoritative policing agency, and that you had received intelligence that there are also the federal government telling these hospital staffs to be prepared. There's going to be casualties, and it's going to be
trauma-related. That was my information.
I mean, just people are going to be in desperate need of help, and there's going to be an overwhelming amount of people, and there's going to be an overwhelming amount of injuries and the potential for horrific situations, as you can imagine. For a federal officer to come into a number of different hospitals in a certain geographical area, in this case it happens to be Cleveland and surrounding areas, But there is a reason behind it, and if this is the reason, then it's the intel, at least I got, was a little premature, because they said early to midsummer. Now, why would they
change that?
Why would it be early to midsummer if it had to do with this current police shooting? Right now, I'm pulling up the information. There was a police officer who shot a boy in the chest. Here we go. Cleveland police arrest boy accused of shooting gun. Okay,
November 29th. Okay, here's the deal. On November 29th, 2012, there was a police chase through Cleveland.
Chase?
A police chase, yes.
Okay.
It ended in gunfire behind an East Cleveland middle school. The shooting took the lives of Timothy Russell and Melissa Williams.
We might be talking about a different case then.
Well, okay. Cleveland police officer Michael Brelow was the officer that shot and killed the individuals. Now, the Brelow verdict, okay, at first, now there's a couple of them here. Okay, you're correct, Joe.
What I'm talking about is
you're talking about that 12-year-old boy, Tamir Rice, I believe.
Tamir Rice, correct.
Okay, but there's like two or three different events going on at the same time, and all of them are being managed. Again, that word managed by the Sharptons of the world. The same people who managed Baltimore and Ferguson are involved in Cleveland, and they're spreading their assets across the shooting of Tamir Rice and the shooting by Brelow, the verdict of which is coming down or expected here sometime soon. Brelow is kind of a higher profile because the Cleveland there's already been protests against Brelow and against the police in advance of any. The jury's out on the Brelow case, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and there's already been protests there. Okay, so now you've got the Tamir Rice case, but Brelow is the one that seems to be the major one that the protesters are involved with. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's going to be a verdict coming down. A federal judge will hold a hearing. This is from the News Herald, the Cleveland News Herald, from yesterday. A federal judge will hold a hearing next month to determine whether to delay a lawsuit filed by relatives of a 12-year-old boy fatally shot by Cleveland police while the criminal investigation is pending. Tamir Rice had an airsoft gun that shoots non-lethal plastic pellets when an officer shot him outside a Cleveland recreation center last November. The officer involved asked the judge to delay the family's lawsuit until the investigation is completed and considered in court. The family's attorney objected to that. The Northeast Ohio Media Group reports a federal judge in Cleveland will hold a hearing June 1st to decide whether to put the lawsuit on hold. Cuyahoga County's Sheriff Pinkley said last week that the detectives have completed most of their investigation. But this sparked outrage. This was a boy, 12-year-old boy, who was playing in a park with a toy gun, and a police officer came and pulled his car into the park and shot him.
The YouTube videos
are a white cop, a black kid.
Yeah.
It's horrible. A narrative that we see too often. And, I mean, you know, some of these cases we've seen with the Michael Brown, there's been altercations involved. There's been, prior robberies or criminal acts that, and in some cases there haven't been, like the guy in New York who was strangled to death by the police officers. But this is and will be politicized for the purpose of fomenting more anti-police, anti-authority, pro-protest sentiment. And does this have is this what the warnings were referring to? And which would tell me it's not a preemptive warning saying, well, this case is going on and it could go either way as far as a ruling, so be prepared. To me, it sounded like, well, the officer is not going to be charged and riots will ensue, so be prepared.
Well, either way, it seems like they're preparing. When I say they, I'm talking about the protesters the professional protesters are preparing for either case. I mean, or for all cases in Cleveland, but either eventuality, whether it's a not guilty or some level of conviction against the police. Just to be clear, it doesn't matter, and that's perhaps that's the most troubling aspect of this. It doesn't matter, and we all saw the video, or if you haven't, of Tamir Rice. I mean, that was just a horrible thing, I thought. And I'm, I understand the police have a very tough job. However, that was just to watch a video was horrible. Now the other case, the Officer Brillo, I don't know much about the intricacies of that case, except the back end of that case, which is the coordination of the protests, and I see all of this being coordinated by the very people who coordinated Baltimore and Ferguson. And what they're doing is they're going across the country. And see, the Brillo case, that's 2 years old. 18 months old. All right. Now, the Tamir Rice case, when did that happen, Joe? That was, my goodness, that was...
time is so...
Okay, that was November. That was just last November. Okay. That was last November. So... that's a little bit more raw, shall we say, than Brillo. Yet Brillo seems to be taking center stage, at least for the clergy and for the city officials who are already urging calm in advance of the Officer Brillo's what the jury has to say about how they rule on Brillo. So it's interesting to watch this.
Yeah.
But regardless of the information that we have is pretty troubling.
Yes, it is. And we have a few minutes left in this hour, and I want to hit a few other pieces of news before we take calls next hour. This out of Oregon caught my attention earlier today. Oregon to test pay-per-mile idea as replacement for gas tax. Oregon is about to embark on the first-in-the-nation program that aims to charge car owners not for the fuel they use, but for the miles they drive. The program is meant to help the state raise more revenue to pay for road and bridge projects at a time when money generated from gas taxes are declining across the country, in part because fuel efficiency cars are increasing in popularity and fuel-efficient hybrid and electric cars also. Starting July 1st, up to 5,000 volunteers in Oregon can sign up to drive with devices that collect data on how much they drive, how much they have driven, and where. And where. Not just how many miles you drive, but where
you went to the strip club today. Smack.
The volunteers will agree to pay 1.5 cents for each mile traveled on public roads with Oregon instead of the tax now added when filling up at the pump. Some electric and hybrid car owners, however, say the new tax would be unfair to them and would discourage purchasing of green vehicles. This program targets hybrid and electric vehicles, so it's discriminatory, said Patrick Corner, a resident who's had an electric car since 2007. State officials say it's only fair if owners of green vehicles to be charged for maintaining roads just as owners of gas-powered vehicles do. Well, I have a question for them. What do the taxes pay for? I mean, if it's anything like around here, it's like driving through mortared roads in Afghanistan. You can get a pothole the size of your tire that gets your car stuck in it. But anyway, they go on to say, we know in the future our ability to pay for maintenance and repair will be severely impacted if we continue to rely on gas tax. That from the Oregon Department of Transportation. Other states are also looking at pay-per-miles alternatives to dwindling fuel tax revenues. California last year created a committee to study alternatives to gas taxes and designed a pilot program. Washington State set money aside to further development a similar program and some alternatives to the study.
They're floating these balloons. I mean, these are trial balloons to test and to condition people.
Yeah, it's just absolutely mind-boggling to me that residents would volunteer, let alone, I mean, this is crazy. Pay per mile.
Yeah.
You can get rid of the gas tax, and how about nobody pays per mile? But it is just.
Yeah, I had a conversation with this was not recent, but a family member, extended family member, who we don't see eye to eye about anything. Well, you've got to. She said, well, you've got to pay. Everyone should pay the taxes because we got to keep up our roads. We got to keep up the bridge. Look at it, our infrastructure is crashing, and Obama is going to fix all that.
Well, it's not.
Excuse me.
First of all, when the infrastructure is sold to foreign nations, whose responsibility is it to fix? I mean, this country, as my grandma would say, is going to hell in a handbasket, and from the infrastructure to the manufacturing and industrial sector to the economic future, the job market, the living conditions, just everything about it is going downhill. Since Obama took office, I disliked President Bush more than any other president ever, and Obama's right up there now, but everything that this man has said and done, the opposite seems to come to fruition. The most transparent administration in history becomes the most secretive, administration who has prosecuted more whistleblowers than any other administration. That everything that they say they're going to do, they have done the opposite to. It's like
that's right.
An indicator to me.
Well, and if you didn't catch the first hour of yesterday's program, if I can jump in here, I did anyway. Please listen to the first hour of yesterday's program when we were talking about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TPP. The reason being is this is so critical. What we're seeing take place right now within the halls of Congress is so critical, the TPP. This is kind of the linchpin for the capping off of the globalist agenda. This is a very integral part of it. And this is why you're seeing this confusion. It looks like, when you look at these strange bedfellows the TPP is creating, and you've got Democrats, and I know the titles are meaningless, but when you've got Democrats or Marxists by very nature who are disagreeing with Obama on this, and then you've got Obama pushing this, and you've got Republicans pushing this, having this on the same page with Obama, and people are scratching their heads saying, what's going on here? The people who don't understand the one-party system, that we've been captured as a nation, we've been overrun as a nation and captured from within. There's a lot of confusion, so we will be unraveling that confusion because Joe's done so much work, and this is going to lead to, and I'm going off on a tangent here, but this is going to lead to the implementation of that chip. That chip that we talk about, the healthcare. And this is why the TPP is why healthcare had to be passed. This is why we had to cede ownership of control of the internet. This is why
NDAA.
Obama. Yeah, this is the answer to a lot of things. And the bigger, the
digger.
I did that yesterday. I think the further you dig into this, the deeper you dig into this. Yeah, it's really a very ugly monster.
And one more headline before we hit the break. This is very important. DHS and Obama want to officially create a national police force. Ironically, DHS already controls our police departments and is using taxpayer dollars to create a national drone surveillance program. But last year, a police expert revealed police departments have become Homeland Security police. Three former NSA officials say America is a police state. DHS-run departments are using community outreach programs to spy on Americans. DHS and DEA have been spying on billions of phone calls for decades. DHS is turning America into a giant surveillance state. The American police state is out of control. The DEA is harassing Amtrak passengers looking for nervous or calm passengers that stare straight ahead. In March of this year, somebody wrote to DHS how the DEA was letting police spy on passenger records without warrants. The Department of Homeland Security is also influencing TV shows and movies. The interim report of the President's Task Force on the 21st Century Policing reveals how the DHS wants to officially create a national police force. Also, America's police have an occupational force mentality, and the President's Task Force is approximately 109 pages long, including appendices and outlines, and including notes and ways in which law enforcement can be federalized. And they have this plan that has just been released on the internet, suggestions for creating an official national police force. The U.S. Department of Justice will develop and disseminate case studies that provide examples where past injustices were publicly acknowledged by law enforcement agencies in a manner to help build community trust, and they will create a law enforcement diversity initiative designed to help these communities diversify these law enforcement departments, and they will continue to improve their diversity through cultural and linguistic programs, and they recommend there is some sort of civilian oversight, but overall the federal government should not only facilitate but support the development of interlocking these law enforcement agencies and implementing the technology and tools consistent with the 21st century best policing practices. And in order to be unified and in their venture, they feel it should be federalized from the top down, not having individual police cities and municipalities making up their own ways and procedures. They all should follow the blueprint of a national police manual situation.
Precisely. Two things I want to touch before the break, and very quickly. I think we really need to understand focus on what's taking place. Rand Paul, regardless of what you think of Rand Paul, regardless of his politics,
his schizophrenic voting record,
right? Regardless of that, one thing he's doing right now is filibustering on the Senate to go against the renewal of the Patriot Act, folks. The Patriot Act is up for renewal June 1st. It expires midnight on the 31st of May of this month. There's a filibuster to outlaw it, so to speak, or not to renew the Patriot Act. At least some of the, if not the entirety of the Patriot Act, then certainly the provisions within the Patriot Act. Bottom line here, we have to press forward, and I think that everyone needs to understand where we are. And however, it does look like, barring Rand Paul's effectiveness, I mean, he could be effective, but it does look like it's going to be renewed. I wanted to mention that. The other thing, I probably could mention this on the other side. Well, you know what? Let me mention this now, because this is so important. Let me find it here. I had actually shut down my notes on this because I don't know what to say, except well, I do know what to say. I guess maybe that's the problem. Mickey Weinstein, okay, back at it again. Let me just here we go here. I know I don't know whether you've heard about this. There's really a persecution. There's a push to court-martial general for thanking God. A civil liberties group is demanding a 2-star general, Air Force general, to be court-martialed for mentioning God. Get this, at a National Day of Prayer Task Force speech on May 7th. Okay, behind this is the despicable, absolutely despicable human
Mickey Weinstein.
How
did I guess that?
Yeah, the CEO of the Civil Liberties Group, in quotation marks, air quotes.
The CEO of Antichrist USA.
Honest to goodness, his group, militaryreligiousfreedom.org, what a piece of trash. And I'm sorry, but I can't think of one good thing to say about Mickey Weinstein and this guy's piece of crap agenda. I'm sorry.
I feel your pain, but gotta try.
Well, this guy, okay, and the story, this was picked up by WorldNet Daily.
We could say he's at least dedicated to his cause.
Well, you know what? Author Maria Canise, author of Prepare for Persecution, Hagmann.com, scroll all the way down. Grab that book, okay, because things like this, she addresses things like this. But this Air Force general was very public. He was on God TV. Now, this is a very selective persecution, and I mean persecution, of not only this two-star general, this two-star Air Force general, but this is also a direct and very extremely critical strike against Christianity by this piece of human debris, Mickey Weinstein, and his garbage organization, Military Religious Freedom Foundation. Okay, he's got it all wrong. He published a letter on Thursday, May 13th, 2015, to the offending general, or to the Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force about the offending general, and he gets it all wrong. He gets it all wrong. Okay, it's an abomination in my view. But more on this, we have to keep our eye on this and the actions of this despicable human being, Mickey Weinstein. The war in Christianity is heating up. We are in the crosshairs. Every Christian that are listening to this are in the crosshairs. And let me tell you something. We will fight back. We are going to fight back. We are going to push back against the Mickey Weinsteins of the world. And make no mistake about it.
That's right.
All right.
We have to. Yeah. Otherwise, who will? With that, we're going to take our top of the hour break. Get a quick word from our partners in this radio endeavor. We're going to take your calls at 661-244-9839. That's 661.
Number 3, the Hagmann Hagmann Report. I just took it over from Joe, wrestled the microphone from him. I'm gonna have to put some pictures. What do you think, folks? Should we put some pictures of the new studio here, even though it's not quite all put together?
Of course we should.
Should we put them up on the social networking sites? All right. Anyway, I want to mention this. Ted Brower is going to be our guest tomorrow. He's got a lot of information that we, Jade Helm, information, a lot of information we're going to be talking about. In addition to, of course, how we can keep ourselves healthy, intertwined with that. But I want to mention this. Folks, if you haven't already, visit healthmasters.com. Visit healthmasters.com. That's healthmasters.com.
Or bodybyted.com.
Yeah, either one. But go to hagmanhagmann.com. I'll scroll down in the middle there, and you'll see the icon for Ted Brower and his wife. I got to tell you something. They've got right now a fixing for a Memorial Day sale, magnesium topical 5-pack kit. If you have arthritis, this is something you really need, this magnesium topical 5-pack kit. It's not an overnight cure for painful arthritis. It will take some time, a month, 6 weeks, but it will make a difference. But if you are a type 2 diabetic like me, late onset adult diabetic, because of too many pizzas and chicken wings and being stuffed inside the back of a surveillance van for 18 hours a day, the blood sugar protocol special that they've got, I got to tell you, man, this really has saved my system, saved my life, and that might sound like an overstatement, but bottom line is this: we need to be fit. We need to be fit for what is coming. And if you're middle-aged or young like me, regardless, healthmasters.com can help you. If you're a type 2 diabetic like me, try this blood sugar protocol. I can't make any medical claims for you. I can just tell you it really set my system straight. And I'm not sure I'd be functional at this point had it not been for Ted. So two products right now: Hagmann Blood Sugar Protocol Special, as well as the Magnesium Topical 5-pack kit at healthmasters.com. Highly recommended. Joe, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, no. Ted offers fantastic supplements, and he puts together, as he says, protocols for different. The magnesium protocol for one for arthritis and joint pain, and his supplements are produced by himself and their own business, packaged, manufactured, all that is done right there. So you're not dealing with.
Just to be clear, it's not like in the kitchen. Okay.
No,
this is a laboratory.
No, he has obviously a professional laboratory, like you said, scientists, chemists, and such. But
their machine to fill the capsules, $3 million.
Wait, what? The machine
to fill the capsules? Just to make the $3 million.
And another interesting thing, a lot of people didn't, including myself, I never knew this, but reading his packages, the pills coated, the coating of the pills are vegetarian, which apparently they use some kind of animal skin tissue for
your
coatings.
Pleasure.
And
what did I say that for?
It's he runs, like I said, a very clean operation. And we were in Florida. He took me and my wife out to lunch, and we walk in this restaurant, and he starts asking the waiter, is this a clean meat? Do you cook this meat with this? And they couldn't answer him, so he's like, all right, let's go. We're out of here. And we go to another restaurant, and sure enough, he finds the menu, and they have the sandwich he wanted, had the meat that he prepared the way that he wanted it prepared, and asked if there was some chemical in it. They went back, asked the chef. The chef said no. So he said, okay, this is fine. We can do this. He takes his stuff very seriously, and for good reason. In this world we live in with food that is basically mass-produced without any nutrition, or either, like the animals are stuffed full of antibiotics and other bacterias and drugs and then put on our kitchen table. There's ways to avoid that, and those ways will keep you much healthier if you stay within the biblical guidelines of dieting and also the latest nutritional standards and what's good and what's bad for you, knowing those things, and then living the lifestyle, which is the hardest part of eating properly. Not like me, who will try eat a salad, with some fruit for breakfast and the salad for lunch for a week or two, and then fall back into pizzas and
eat a salad.
Mm-hmm. That's because I come over here and let's get a pizza.
No pepperoni, though.
No. Dad, can you get lettuce on the pizza?
Shut up. Wow. Changing gears here. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Joe and I were talking before the show. It seems like there's a convergence of events. Bob and Maggie, thank you very much for your email from I think the day before yesterday. Is there a list of potential events taking place, or for September this fall? I'll just put it this way, not yet. And I'll leave it at that. Not yet. We've got a lot of work. We're slowly now turning our attention to the website to really to bring it up to date, and also for original investigative reports. I got to tell you, it's we've been really busting our butts here to over the last several
hours,
days. Well, really since the 1st of May, just busting our humps to get things really working well. Up until 3:30 in the morning with the tech for video, the interfacing, and
half the days I wake up, I'm like, can I call in sick today? And
yeah.
Wait a second, I can't.
Neither one
to call.
None of us have the ability to resign. If you want to quit, who do you say? I quit to, right?
I'm putting in my 2-week notice.
To who?
To myself.
No, you know what, and that's the other part of this equation. I just want to let you know, because I do think that people are expecting, and who knows, people are expecting something big to happen in September, some financial calamity, some terrorist attack, or whatever. I think that I really believe in my heart of hearts. Yeah, while that's possible, I don't see the drama behind that. I see more of a as it was once described to me as a car falling off a cliff, and bang, you hit the one side, you tumble and and you keep tumbling, and who knows though? I mean, something very dramatic could happen, but I think each successive event that takes place will be much more dramatic than the last, as the car continues to careen and crash down that hill. So it doesn't have to be necessarily, if you're sitting back waiting for the end of life as we know it to occur at the end of September or by the end of September, that doesn't have to be the case.
No, like what I do, and after closely examining the news for years, doing nothing but researching the news and what was behind the news, realizing how things unfold and big things happen, it's usually when we don't expect it. You see the build up for every time the Super Bowl is about to happen. You see, is the Super Bowl going to be attacked, and 100,000 conspiracy theories as to why and how and who, and nothing happens. But boom, Boston Marathon bombing happens. Nobody, put together a theory as to why that could be attacked. So it seems that they do things that will misguide us or throw curveballs our way. And the build-up towards this September date leads me to believe that they'll let that pass to make everybody look crazy, to make everybody think they're safe.
But see, that doesn't mean that things are not happening.
No. I mean, they could turn around the very next month and drop the hammer. But what I'm saying is they want your guard down.
Right. But while we're looking for that one big thing, there are a whole bunch of smaller things that are happening under the radar. Dave Hodges, for example, talking about extraction of people. And people might laugh at that and say, oh, that's not going to happen. Well, did you ever think that perhaps it already is happening with very little fanfare? In other words, if let's say, I'm just using this as an example, September 28th, you had this massive roundup of all kinds of supposed political dissidents. That'd make the news, or it'd make somebody's news, right? Well, if there was news out there to be. But you get the idea. But if you do it 1, 2 at a time, if you throw the monkey wrench into the system over here and then discredit this person over there and then drive a wedge between the relationship of person A and person B over here, and all of this taking place incrementally, okay? Yeah, the crescendo will be reached at a point certain, but it's already taking place right now. It's already going on right this minute. Look around you, and that's what I'm referring to. And Paul McGuire is going to be talking about it. Wonderful, wonderful assistant Joni. God bless her. Had a great chance to meet her today. Just so humbled by that. So honored, I should say, to be able to talk with her, and what great people they are. And
she's all right. No, I talk to her quite frequently, and she's a treasure.
There are two things, and I'm going to turn it back over to you. But two things I'd like to throw out there if I need help with. You ready? Okay. If you can, we're making some. We're going to be really pushing. Well, three things. We're really going to be doing some video work. So anyone experienced and has the time to maybe offer some advice, perhaps assistance. When I say assistance, I'm not talking, to keep you up forever, okay? And maybe you can send us an email at studio through the contact us page. The other thing. If you like your cartoon, if you draw cartoons, for example, and if you do that as a hobby and you'd like your cartoons featured, if we said, well, this is what we'd kind of like as a cartoon, original artwork from you.
What about my painting within the numbers?
Yeah. We'd give you official credit, of course, but give us permission to use your artwork for our purposes. But we'd also elevate you as well, your artwork and such. That's number two. And can't remember what the third thing was. I don't have it written down, but anyway, those two things. Web work, some graphic and some stuff for like backgrounds on websites. Okay, so if you know how to do that, so just reach out if you can through our contact us page. If you can assist us, if you have the desire to assist us, thank you very much for allowing us to do that.
And we're going to go to the phones as soon as my computer wants to agree with me and obey my clicks.
We had the tech come in today, this morning, and comment on the lines.
Tested the speed and
said, "What are you running here? A TV station, or
All right, there we go. Okay, got the call screen up. Now let's see if the buttons to take calls work. 785. You are the first caller tonight. 785. We're coming to you. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Thank you for taking my call. Monday night you had a really, really good guest, and I wrote down the website, and I can't find it, and I really wanted to get into it. So, do you have that by any chance?
Yes.
The appearance.
Augusto Perez.
Yeah.
No, his website is appearance.com.
Is it appearance.com or theappearance.com?
I'll tell you right now. I'll tell you right this.
I saved it somewhere here.
Yeah. In fact, we're behind on the. Oh my goodness, we're behind on the past show page.
There it is.
Go ahead.
Theappearance.com.
Theappearance.com.
All right. Thank you so much, and thank you for all your work. Appreciate it very much.
Well,
all right.
For you, thank you so much.
Thanks for the call. You have a good night.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, Augusto Perez joined us Monday. He was
boy, wasn't he focused? He was like a laser Monday night.
Yeah, he's such a Holy Spirit filled man. He is very dedicated, very serious in his relationship with the Lord. The Lord has revealed things to him, and he has what's called a fivefold ministry, and he has written a number of I don't want to say they're books, but they're not huge books. They're smaller books on individual subject matters, from prayer to fasting to devotion, and not many people have known about these. And after having Augusto on the show many times, we had somebody who's either good friends with him or really respects and follows him. And this gentleman sent me an informational packet along with 4 of those books, which are invaluable. So check those out if you get a chance. I don't have the titles with me, but he has a lot more to offer than to come on the show and talk about potential prophetic events. He has a great ministry, and just like David Langford, Pastor Langford.
I was just going to say, Revelation 13 Revealed, Pastor Langford, a phenomenal book. And if you want to know about Revelation 13, please go to his website, and it's off of hagmanandhagmann.com. The voice of evangelism, David Langford. Get Revelation 13 Revealed. It's an incredible read, and it puts things in perspective current day.
All right, moving right along. Area code 580. We're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Is that me?
That's you.
That is you.
Oh, boy. I got it on right away. Hey, listen, I'm kind of anonymous because I wanted to make a donation, a large donation, and I don't know how to go about doing it. Do you have a website?
I'll meet you in the park at midnight. No, I'm just kidding.
On our website, there's a few ways that people who want to donate can donate. We have at hagmanandhagmann.com a PayPal option, and for those who don't feel comfortable using the online transfer of money, we have a P.O. box, which I can just read.
It's right on the right-hand side of hagmanandhagmann.com.
Yeah, it's Hagmann Investigative Services, it's
well, don't read the thing because just go, sir. Do you have a computer? I mean, you got a computer, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
If you go to Hagmann and Hagmann.com on the right hand side, on the home page, just scroll down. You'll see a PayPal donate button, and then there's our address along with our company name. Now, our company name, and I probably should mention this, is Hagmann Investigative Services Incorporated. The reason for that is we are not a 501c3. And the radio show is owned by our investigative company, and we do all of our investigative reporting through our investigative company, which is licensed. And it's just to comply with banking laws. But that's that's how to do it. If that's all right. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that's fine. It'd be a large cashier's check, probably.
Wow. Well, thank you.
I don't want to get into anything else, but it'll be probably in a few weeks.
Okay. Well, thank you, and
we appreciate any level of support more than we can express, and just can't thank people enough for their generosity, and without you guys, we couldn't keep this show going. At least not at what we're doing with the expansion, the new studio, the new abilities and ways we're going to be able to operate, and you and the rest of the listeners and supporters are the backbone of this radio show. And again, our appreciation can't be articulated in words, and we just want to say thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. I've been listening to you guys for years, and I've never been able to do this. And it looks like in a couple of, maybe 3 weeks at the most, I'll be able to do it. So anyway, I love the show. You and True News and, Alex and all them. I love you guys. Steve.
Oh, Steve is fantastic, and wow.
McGuire, and I can't even think of everybody right now, but I'm just so thankful for what I'm getting, and I just want to put it to good work before it's not going to be able to be used.
Well, wow. Are you okay? Are you okay?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you call it nervous or just full of the Holy Ghost or what, but I just.
Yeah, no. What I meant was, I mean, it just. You're not ill, or anything like that, are you? In other words,
what?
You're not physically ill.
Oh no.
Okay.
No, I got cancer back after 6 years, but it'll be gone here in a couple of months.
Oh, praise God! That's great.
Had prostate cancer, and it'd been 0 PSA for 6.5 years, and then all of a sudden it started jumping up to 7.5 this year. But anyway, the doctor said he can get rid of it in a couple of months. So.
Well, Ted Broer, I'm going to ask Ted Broer on your behalf about prostate cancer tomorrow night. I know you're under doctor's care, but sometimes that little push of maybe a certain supplement or a vitamin or mineral might help. But we'll plug you in with Ted Broer, and he's done wonders for certain things that people don't know about with me, and that prostate stuff is nasty.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to do everything I can, and you need to pray that I can get my brother to listen to your show tomorrow night, because he's got stage 3 kidney disease, and I told him I jumped him so bad about those statin drugs and stuff, and I told him to get his apple cider vinegar and all the other stuff that Ted talked about before.
Yep.
And I'm just I don't know. There's no words for it. I just wanted to listen to your show tomorrow night. If not, I'll turn him to his website, I guess.
Yes, yes, and we'll also. I just made a note here about kidney disease and what can be done about it. So we'll have him listen if possible, and we'll certainly turn Ted on. He's like a pit bull when he gets on certain subjects, prostate, kidney. That's all, you know.
I know that's right.
So
yeah.
Oh, all right, brother. Well, thank you so much, and God bless you.
Right.
Stay safe, and thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, brother.
God
Have
bless.
a great night. God bless you too.
Okay, bye.
All right.
Such a great listening audience. I mean, I know we say that all the time.
Yeah, but you know one thing too. We had, and I'll say this, and I'll shut up. I just
you always say that.
Yeah, I know. You know, Steve Quayle, Pastor Langford, Paul McGuire. I mean, some of the best people in the world to me. Nathan Leal. I don't want to leave everyone out. I mean, folks, you know who the people are. You know, Dave Hodges. I'm going to be on Dave Hodges' show on Sunday.
Oh, not to interrupt you. You'll be on Dave Hodges Sunday. I believe Alex Jones had Steve Quayle on.
Yes, this past.
Was it today or was it today or
yesterday?
Okay.
Or the day before.
I didn't catch that, and I didn't hear it. I'm going to go back and listen to it, whatever day he was on. But
and he was on Coast to Coast on Thursday or Saturday night.
Yeah, he was. He was on Coast to Coast. I remember us announcing it. It was either Monday.
My days are all messed up.
See what happens when you don't sleep is the days start running together, and
which is why we don't know half the time what day it is. Okay, I've got I've got my date book right in front of me. By the way, for the record, I don't use.
No, you just need to learn how to read.
Well, just got to turn to the right page. I don't use electronic date books. I got my hard copy date book, and people made fun of me in Florida saying, "Oh, you still use a day timer?" Well, yeah, because it never crashes. You just have to learn how to turn the page.
Oh, which reminds me, not to cut you off on your thought, but
that's all right.
Anybody who's been trying to reach me via cell phone, my cell phone's been DOA since Friday evening, and I'm not ignoring anybody. So
yes, we are.
If you've been calling, texting, those of you who communicate with me, I have not been ignoring you at all. My phone will not turn back on. Its battery died. I went to charge it, and it just won't charge or turn back on. But good news, I do have an upgrade. I just need to select my phone, and before the beginning of next week, I should have a new phone in working order.
All right.
So people out there who do contact me via the cell phone, just please excuse my absence and inability to communicate, as I will be back up and running soon. But I know I get dozens of phone calls a day and hundreds of text messages, so it's probably very backed up, and people are probably thinking I have jumped the ship. So
yeah, and it's just us too. I mean, we don't have we don't have assistants and people that we have. No, I mean technically, we wash the floors and the walls and answer emails, do the website work, and we do everything. So, just so people understand, it's not an operation like Glenn Beck or something like that. We do it all. So,
all right. Area code. We're going to go to Montana, 406. You're up next, live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Is that me?
That's you, man.
Oh, awesome. First off, I want to thank you both for what you guys do, and this is the first time you call in. It's kind of, nervous a little bit, but either way.
Hey, it's just us, man.
Well, I appreciate it. I'll kind of get right to it. I live in Montana here, and I work for a trucking company, and hearing the stuff going on with Cleveland and whatnot, I just kind of want to tell you guys what I've been able to see and hear on my end of it. Basically, in Ohio and Indiana, it's always awesome places to get freight out of, getting things in and out and whatnot. Well, for the last week and a half, nothing has moved in the area. And then on top of that, just today, we actually ended up moving a couple, like, armored military vehicles to specifically Cleveland. So I just thought coincidence, maybe, who knows, but, you know, we're not anything special or anything like that, but all of that kind of in the same time frame to me just kind of seems kind of weird, you know?
When you say Army military vehicles, like what? Like personnel carriers or?
Like MRAPs. Well, what my driver told me was that it was what he said was a military tank. Now, whether it was on tracks or not, I don't know because of all that stuff going on in the news right now. But he did say to me that it was a military tank, to say the least. Now, would they use that down there for these riots and things like that going on? I doubt it. But again, just throwing things out there, you know, as I come across them.
Now, is this unusual for your company? I mean, is this one of the first requests of that nature you received? Or?
To be completely honest with you, we have in the last couple months been moving a ton of military vehicles from like El Paso and North Carolina, things like that, to these military bases. But going into that area, yes, this is my area. I take care of it. I do the entire Northeast here, and I don't ever move any military equipment like that at all. But I also get to hear what's coming into my area. And go into that specific area or spot, no, I haven't heard of it so far.
Very interesting, and please keep us apprised as to anything more that you might hear that would be helpful to the listeners, whatever area, you know, of the country, because or the world, you know, for that matter, but specifically the country, it would certainly help us.
I don't, and this is just what I hear, and don't get me wrong, truckers talk, and it's you know, it's great listening to them because they're the guys on the ground and things like that. But over the last couple of months, like I've been saying, we've been shipping a lot of stuff. We do ship a lot of it to the coast, and whether I haven't been able to look at this part of it myself, and maybe you guys can look into it and enlighten all of us, but I was told that they are sending it to the Middle East region because they are expecting some sort of conflict, if you will, something like that, but they've been all put on military readiness, if you will, especially the Marine bases, I hear. But that's just what I've heard. I haven't been able to look into it or anything like that. But that's where a lot of this military stuff is kind of going towards, I guess.
Understood. So, okay. All right. Very good information. Very well, spot on point. Very, very well done. Appreciate that. And yes, please keep us posted. We'd love to hear more as you have it, and this helps us, you know, be at the ready. So, indeed.
Absolutely.
All right, brother. God bless.
Thanks,
man.
sir.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for the call.
Bye.
Good night.
You know, Joe, it's amazing how things are seemingly that there's something here in the Middle Atlantic area that there's, you know, something going on here with Cleveland, and we saw what happened in the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, we did.
All right.
I saw that right from...
yeah, you weren't even thought of yet.
No, not even close. 763. You're coming up next, live on the Hagmann Report.
Something going on here with Cleveland. We saw what happened in the late 60s.
Okay, you have to mute that.
Yeah, we did.
214. We're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
214. You're up. Going once. Dead air. Good for radio.
214. No. All right. 805. 805. Third time's a charm. We're coming to you.
805. Area code 805. You're up.
We're going to start calling people.
Yeah, we're going to call you back.
All right. 916. 916. You're up next. Thank you for holding. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Hey, brothers. How we doing?
Good, man. What's up?
Awesome. Just Wow, what an interesting couple weeks we've been in, and I've had a couple. I'd say a little bit of low tires, and I got inflated yesterday, so I'm back on the track, and things are good. Have you been hearing about the wrong way driver accidents in the Sacramento area?
Yeah, like 3 different people have at least 3 on separate occasions driving the wrong way and causing car accidents.
Yeah, has somebody been changing signs, or what's going on?
People have attributed it to behavior changes.
No, this is a big sign, guys. This is what I got from the Lord. Many are going the wrong way. They are crashing and burning. There's been 19 deaths, at least 19 in the last 4 weeks, and it's like what would used to happen once every so many years. We've had, I think we've had 6, maybe a little bit more than 6 in the last 4 or 5 weeks. And as I was listening to you guys, Joe, go to Jeremiah 7:23 and verses 23 and 24, and I mean, right there, the last part of that verse just kind of blew me away. So Jeremiah 7:23 through 24, and so what I've done is I've actually driven to these areas, and I've prayed, just breaking, because it's a spiritual war. And this morning when I was driving down into Sacramento from where I live, there's a psychic center just before you get to Placerville, and they're under new management. So on the way down there, I saw a dead cat and I saw a dead raccoon in the fastbound lane on Highway 50 about a mile before. I go down into Sacramento and just was blessed. I got to pray for a Muslim man, and he was actually agreeing with me about Jesus. He was from Pakistan. It was an epic day of just prayer and just seeing God using all of us. When I was coming back up the hill, about a mile before the psychic center, there was a major accident, a head-on. One of the cars flew off about 60 feet down the ravine. When I got there, the fire chief was just pulling up, so I was able, because I'm a retired firefighter, I went up and just assisted. The first car was some minor injuries, but major damage to that car. There was someone that stabilized that lady. I went down the hill, got to the lady in the car. She had one little scratch on her finger, that little bit of blood, just a banged up knee, and that was pretty much it. She literally flew in her car down 60 feet and got airborne. Total miracle. Cal Fire showed up. They brought they had the inmates there, so they were able to clean all the brush around the car. So it was just a quick in and out. And what was amazing is that the guy that came in and took over my place, his name was Joel, and then the guy that was the captain for the Cal Fire crew was Captain King. So anyway, you got that, Joe?
Yes, I do. Jeremiah chapter 7, verse 23 states, "But this thing commanded I them, saying, Obey my voice, and I will be your God, and ye shall be my people, and walk ye in all the ways that I have commanded you, that it may be well unto you. But they hearkened not, nor inclined their ear, but walked in the counsels and in the imaginations of their evil heart, and went backward and not forward."
Crash.
There you go. That's the wrong way. This is what's going on. There's a spirit of confusion in the land. God's allowing it, and He's saying, either change teams now, or just draw your line. And the lines are being drawn. And it says in Isaiah 35, verse 8, and a highway shall be there, and a way, and it shall be called the way of holiness. The unclean shall not pass over it, but it shall be for those, the wayfaring men, though fools, shall not err therein. So this is part of what God's doing. The highway's already here. And if you just go to, when you guys have time, just go to the book of Isaiah 11, about the Spirit of God. But at the very end, it talks about the remnant and then the highway that will go from Egypt to Syria. So it's epic days. It's days of exploits for those that know God. And I just ask God. Go ahead.
If I can, I wanted to add a scripture or the chapter of Isaiah to what you're talking about, as I feel it is important and want people to dwell and think about this. And we need to discuss this in future broadcasts. Isaiah chapter 8, moreover the Lord said unto me, take thee a great roll and write in it with a man's pen concerning, and this name is the longest name in the Bible. It's Maher Shalach Kawashbaz. And I took unto me the faithful witness to record Uriah the priest and Zechariah the son of Jebechiah. And it goes on to say, I went unto the prophetess, and she conceived and bare a son, that the Lord to call her name, and it's that name again, Maher Shalach Kazabah, which means hasting booty, swift to the prey, is the meaning of the word. And it goes on to talk about the governments of Samaria and Assyria, but it says, the Lord spake unto me again, saying, forsomuch as this people refuseth the waters of Shiloah, that go softly and rejoice in Rezin and Ramallah's son. Now therefore, behold, bringeth up upon them the waters of the river, and strong and many, even the king of Assyria, and all the glory shall come up over his channels and go over the banks. It shall pass through Judah, and they shall overflow, and he shall reach to the neck of the stretching out of the wings, and shall fill the breadth of the land of Emmanuel. Associate yourselves, O people, and ye shall be broken in pieces, and give ear to all ye far countries. Gird yourselves, and ye shall be broken in pieces. Gird yourselves, you shall be broken in pieces. Take counsel together, and it shall come to naught. Speak the word, and it shall not stand, for God is with us. The Lord spake to me with a strong hand, and instructed me that I should not walk in the way of this people, saying, say ye not a confederacy to all whom this people shall say, a confederacy, neither fear ye their fear, nor be afraid. Sanctify the Lord your host, and himself be your fear. Let him be your dread, and he shall be a sanctuary and a stone, and a stumbling block, and a rock for an offense to both house of Israel, and a gin for the snare of the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And bind up the testimony, seal the law among my disciples, and I will wait upon the Lord, and hideth his face from the house of Jacob, and I will look for him. Behold, I and the children whom the Lord hath given me for signs and for wonders in Israel, from the Lord of hosts which dwell in Mount Zion. And they shall say unto you, seek to them that seek familiar spirits, unto wizards that peep and that mutter. Should not a people seek unto their God for living to the dead, to the law and testimony? If they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them. And it goes on to end with, and it shall come to pass, when they shall be hungry, and they shall fret themselves and curse the king and their God, and shall look upward, and they shall look unto the earth, and behold trouble and darkness, dimness and anguish, and they shall be driven into darkness. And then it goes into chapter 9, where it talks about what Jonathan Kahn gets into with the Harbinger and the comparisons between 9/11 and Israel. And it says that the Lord has broken the yoke of the burden. And this is pertaining not only to the fulfillment of a scripture, of a prophecy long ago, but from all things I can understand, this pertains to an upcoming prophecy as well.
Amen. And you know what's amazing? Romans 9:33, as it is written, behold, I lay in Zion a stumbling stone, a rock of offense, and whosoever believeth on him shall not be ashamed. You go to verse 8 of 7 of Isaiah, verse 8. For the head of Syria is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is risen. And within 365 shall Ephraim be broken, that it not be a people. So, you know, I'm telling you what, man, we are blessed, and just continue giving out what God's given us. God told me, you got it, now go give it.
Absolutely. And also it echoes that it says the people reach out to the leaders, which do cause them to err and lead them to the destruction. Therefore the Lord says, hearken unto me, because he will cut off those evildoers and all the mouths that speak evil. And his anger will not be turned away from these people. But the sure foundation is the Lord, and he has a safe dwelling and resting place for all of those who dwell in him.
Amen, amen. I'm going to leave with my shofar, but before I do, I just want to ask and just plead to those, the powers of darkness that are in that confederate, that are in that confusion. And I just ask God in the name of King Jesus that you would literally just touch those people that are being led directly into darkness, Lord, into outer darkness, Lord. I ask, King Jesus, I ask that you would touch them right now, God, like never before, and bring many into an alignment with absolute truth. And we just give you all praise and glory.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much for the call.
Hallelujah.
God bless.
Thank you, brother.
All right, guys. Shalom.
Folks, I want to touch on this very quickly here. What we're seeing taking place internally with our country is unforgivable, and I say unforgivable. We were seeing the dilution of Christianity, the rending of the moral and cultural fabric of America. Diana West, who's an author, had and research investigative journalist, had last week wrote about green cards being issued to Muslims here in America. Folks, do you want to take a guess very quickly of how many green cards were granted to Muslim immigrants since 9/11?
I would say it is just slightly more than the amount of driver's license and security clearances, but I would say 7,300,000.
No. 1.6 million, 1,628,854 between 2001 and 2013. Here's the bottom line. Here's why I reference this. And she quotes, or she's referencing Daniel Horowitz of Conservative Review. How many people in this country are aware of the fact that immigration from Islamic countries has doubled since 9/11? If you think that this is accidental, of course, the results or the collateral effect of this is mind-blowing. Of course, you're seeing the denigration of our moral, of our culture here in America. But think about the economic consequences. Think about the fact that we've had nearly 250,000 from Pakistan. That's just one example. But 1.628 million green cards issued to nationals from Muslim countries. This is a numbers game. This is a numbers war. 116,000 from Iraq, 100,000 from Egypt, 78,000 from Somalia, 200,000 from Pakistan, 166,000 from Iran. The reason I mention this is one of the tactics being used by the globalists in this country, in America. Now, those listening in the West, UK and other Western countries, understand this is happening to you as well. This is to destroy our national sovereignty. It's not just about votes, although that does, there's something there. However, this is infiltration from within. I want to get that in before the end of the program. Think about this. And it's only getting worse. 1.6 million since 9/11. You think that's an accident? No, it's not. It's intentional. It's by design, and it's to the detriment of all of us. Folks, I just want to leave you with that, to consider that. And tomorrow, Ted Broer, Joe.
And Friday, Paul McGuire.
But
tomorrow, Ted Broer, healthmasters.com. Do not want to miss that show. It will be fantastic. Until then, stay safe. God bless. Have a great night.
Good night.